At 12:56 p.m. on October 16, 2022, a 911 dispatcher received an unusual call. There was no one speaking on the other end, just continuous groaning and mumbling sounds, reminiscent of a faint scream. The 911 dispatcher asked, "What are you reporting? What do you need to report?"
911, what are you reporting? Hello? What's going on there? Okay, I'm going to get help started to you. Hold on for me for just a second. Do you know the address that you're at, if I said it?
Due to the low volume, the dispatcher couldn't gather any specific information, but made an intuitive guess, based on the voice's tone, that the caller might be a woman, and the sounds emanating from her throat suggested her mouth might be blocked and she could not speak. At that moment, various noises emerged from the phone's background, like a struggle, urgent knocking, and other peculiar sounds typical of extraordinary circumstances. The dispatcher then utilized digital analysis to pinpoint the signal's origin on the other end and dispatch the information. After receiving a response, the call center staff immediately contacted the nearest police to investigate the situation. After a while, the voice on the other end of the phone grew weaker until it was utterly silent, even though the call remained connected but no further sounds were transmitted. October 16, 2022, Lacey, Washington, USA. The story unfolds in the city of Lacey, located in the suburbs of Thurston County, Western Washington, USA. Lacey, surrounded by coastal plains and benefiting from the convenient traffic of federal highways, boasts a harmonious, healthy, and happy community life. In Lacey, there lived a couple, Chai Kyong-an, 53, and Young Sook-an, 42. They have two children, a 20-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son. The family had been living there for 4 years, in a typical peaceful neighborhood. However, life is not always calm and peaceful, and people would be fortunate if their lives were devoid of turmoil. In the summer of 2022, due to family conflicts, Young Sook filed for divorce. The couple separated and started preparing for the divorce proceedings. Chae Kyong moved out. Therefore, currently only the wife and their two children were living in the house. Chae Kyong still visited occasionally to wash clothes and take care of the children. Around 12:30 p.m. on October 16, 2022, Young Sook and her two children returned from church, noticing her husband's car parked in the driveway. This wasn't surprising, as he usually stopped by the house every week on that day to do laundry and spend time with the kids. Compared to their daily meetings in the past, they found this change significantly better, and this time they could discuss the divorce. The children, just back home, hadn't yet had the chance to talk with their father before their mother sent them to the supermarket. What followed was a conversation between the couple, with neither willing to compromise on the division of assets, leading to an argument. Chae Kyong, losing control, stated, "Even if I die, I will never give you any support money." The wife was furious upon hearing this, but didn't pay much attention. As they had lived together for so long, similar quarrels had become a frequent occurrence over the years. Young Sook demanded that her husband leave the house immediately. Tired and frazzled, she headed upstairs to change clothes, oblivious to the fact that her husband, Chae Kyong, had followed her and entered the bedroom. Seizing a moment of distraction, Chae Kyong attacked her from behind. He then proceeded to bind her with duct tape, covering her mouth, eyes, and restraining her limbs. After immobilizing his wife, Chae Kyong temporarily left the scene. How could a man suddenly become so deranged? What did he want? Was he drunk? Such questions haunted the terrified wife. The only thing she knew was that her husband had lost his mind. In a panic, she remembered the Apple Watch on her wrist. Frantically, she sent an emergency text to a friend and her eldest daughter, simultaneously dialing 911. Unable to speak, her only hope was that this call would save her life. At the time of the call, her eyes and mouth were sealed shut with tape, and her limbs were tightly bound. Alone in the room, young Sook struggled desperately to send a distress signal to the outside world. Fortunately, the police were dispatched, but tragically, her husband returned just in time. Surveillance footage from across the street showed Chae-kyung driving into the garage and dragging young Sook from the bedroom downstairs. He then noticed the watch on her wrist was still communicating with 911. Realizing the urgency, he removed the watch, smashing it with a hammer and even striking Young Sook's wrist several times. He then forced her to swallow an unidentified drug, pulled her into the trunk of the car and drove away. Surveillance video showed the police arriving to investigate, passing by Chae-kyung's speeding truck by chance. Due to their urgent mission, they did not stop to question the speeding vehicle, allowing Chae-kyung to drive away from the area towards the mountains. Meanwhile, the police reached the wife's home, unaware of the events that had transpired. They could only speculate on the possible robbery, abduction, or murder. Approaching the front door, they announced their presence loudly, causing the neighbors' dogs to bark furiously. Upon entry, they found a broken Apple Watch still connected to the 911 dispatch lying on the floor. The house was empty. The front door and garage were wide open without any signs of violence. Just then, the two children returned from the supermarket. They were shocked to see a group of police at their home, their parents gone. A chilling premonition arose. After some discussion, the eldest daughter revealed that her mother had sent her out on an errand shortly before receiving an urgent message from her. On their way home, they had passed their father's car. In the subsequent investigation, the police uncovered a history of domestic violence within the family. The primary suspect was the husband, Chae-kyung. Furthermore, young Sook had been under a protective order, which was later revoked by the court. Neighboring surveillance footage led the police to recognize the speeding car as belonging to the suspect. They initiated a citywide manhunt and issued an arrest warrant. Far from their starting point, the car had traveled approximately 11 kilometers. It seemed they were far enough away to avoid detection, alone in a desolate wilderness where once love lived, now only hatred remained. Chae-kyung surveyed the surroundings and finally spotted a sight he liked, resembling a grave. Throughout the journey, young Sook was dazed, barely registering when the car finally stopped. Before she could react, she was dragged out of the vehicle by Chae-kyung. Suddenly, she felt the sharp pain of a knife stabbing her chest, a pain so intense it brought her mind into sharper focus. She realized she must have been taken to an unfamiliar suburban area. Through her blurred vision, she noticed a figure digging with a shovel. As the sun set and darkness enveloped the sky, the hole in front of her grew larger. Bound and gagged, all young Sook could do was listen to the sound of the shovel scooping and dumping soil. Gradually, a grave was formed. Chae-kyung pulled young Sook into the pit and began to bury her. Presumably, he thought her incapable of escape due to the drugs and the stabbing wounds, believing that being buried alive would inevitably suffocate her. However, young Sook was still alarmingly lucid. She knew escape was impossible with her limbs tightly bound. She felt every shovel of dirt cover her body and face, tilting her head slightly to prevent soil from blocking her nostrils. Luckily, her small movements went unnoticed. After a while, the shoveling stopped. Young Sook felt the weight of the soil pressing down on her. She felt Chae-kyung tamping down the earth, and then something heavier was placed on top, a log that her husband had prepared specially. After completing his gruesome task, he returned to the car. Buried beneath the earth, young Sook relied on the scant oxygen available. Hearing the car engine start, she began to twist her body, first working her hands free from the tape, then removing the tape from her eyes, mouth, and ankles. The process took an agonizing hour, and the pain in her chest intensified, but she ignored it. Gradually she moved upward through the soil, and as her head emerged, she saw her husband's car not far away. Its windows fogged up and the lights on, casting the only light in the dark surroundings. Fear engulfed her. Eventually, she knew she couldn't delay addressing her injuries. Using all her strength, she pushed the log off and climbed out of the grave, fleeing in the opposite direction from the car. About 20 to 30 minutes later, she spotted a house. It was now 52 minutes past midnight. Without a second thought, she knocked and entered, recounting her harrowing experience to the homeowners. Covered in dirt and grime, she was in a deplorable state, but the family promptly offered their assistance and called the police for her. After the police arrived, young Sook was hiding behind the family's storage shed. Only after confirming that it was indeed the police did she run out seeking help. "My husband is trying to kill me. Please save me. He's still out there somewhere in these woods." The police, observing the dirt, bruises, and remnants of duct tape on her, believed her immediately. They provided first aid for her wounds and transported her to the hospital. At about 07:38 a.m. on October 17th, a day after the ordeal, a local resident walking by spotted a suspicious green Dodge, which the police had been searching for, parked near Stedman Street, and alerted the authorities. Thurston and Lacey County Police responded swiftly, and within 44 minutes, the suspect, Chae Kyung, was arrested and detained. His physical and mental health were assessed and found to be normal. He was to face charges of attempted murder, kidnapping, and first-degree assault. On October 18, 2022, Chae Kyung was placed in Thurston County Jail, awaiting trial. Later that day, the police discovered a grave approximately 1.65 meters long, 0.76 meters wide, and 48 centimeters deep near Sittesman Road, where young Sook had been buried. Inside, they found leftover duct tape, blood stains, hair, and fragments of a watch. The prosecutors charged Chae Kyung with premeditated murder, domestic violence of the first degree, kidnapping, assault, and harassment. The deputy prosecutor requested the court to deny bail. Young Sook herself hired a private attorney, stating, "Please don't grant him bail. I'm extremely concerned for my safety and life. I want to emphasize that I am genuinely terrified of him. If he is released, he will definitely come back to kill me." Chae Kyung's defense attorney suggested a bail amount of 115 wows as a preventive measure. Additionally, Chae Kyung was a former veteran who had served 30 years in the U.S. intelligence community without any prior convictions. It is possible that he faced significant psychological stress during his service, contributing to his criminal behavior. This fact was young Sook's greatest fear. She knew her husband's background in intelligence. If he had sinister intentions, his actions after release could be unimaginable. Ultimately, the court agreed to deny bail. Currently, the case is still undergoing trial. While young Sook narrowly escaped death and has returned to her normal life, going grocery shopping and preparing Halloween gifts for her children, the trauma's aftermath extends beyond physical wounds. Perhaps it's a heartache she will never forget, the close brush with death. Reflecting on the case, Chae Kyung's decisive and cruel tactics are truly horrifying. Young Sook's ability to call the police and save herself added a critical dimension to the case. When adversity strikes you personally, it's crucial to remain calm and utilize whatever resources we have to resolve the situation. Trust in life, for outside, there are many good things awaiting us. That concludes our video for today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next ones. Goodbye.